Hey guys, welcome. So before I start, I want you to know it's freezing here. It's only like 40 degrees, but the wind chill is ridiculous. So what that means is that I have to keep my door closed. And so the magnetic screen door that my dog goes in and out of at will has to be closed. And he is barking at every leaf that drops, and there's plenty of dropping. So I'm hoping to record this with minimal Maverick interruptions, but that might happen. I've been trying to record all day, create content for Instagram, and I just can't do it. So we might just have to put up with some barking. Okay, so today I want to talk about dopamine, and I've been talking about it a lot, like we talked about it with Tori Winstead about snacking. And I always likened dopamine to cheap dopamine, right? Cheap dopamine comes in the form of, particularly with our kids, screens and hyper-palatable foods, and with us, okay? Because when we talk about dopamine and how it's affecting us as a society, I feel like we often lean into what our kids are doing, and the reality is it's how we're doing it too, right? Because we're leading the charge here. And I thought, I thought dopamine was about the reward, and everybody does seem to think it's about the reward. And so I decided, I don't know, a few months ago to really do a deep dive, because I feel like dopamine is one of those things, like almost like insulin, like you know what it is, but do you actually know what the function is, how it works in the body, and being able to like translate it back to you, right? In an easy to understand manner. And what's happening is I'm seeing so much about dopamine lately, and it's being bastardized a bit. It's being used in the wrong context. And I think it's really, really important, because we are in big trouble as a society. We just are. And I actually recorded this podcast a couple of weeks ago, and I asked my producer, I was like, can you let me know if this was like too doomsday? And it disappeared. It disappeared out of my recording. I must have deleted it accidentally or didn't upload it. And so I think that was the universe's way of saying, no, that one was too doomsday. So I'll try not to be heavy handed, but I feel like we really need to know about dopamine, because we are headed for a disaster on all fronts. And I know most of you listening, I know I attract a certain audience, and I know we're probably like, I don't know, I'd say we probably fall into like sane crunchy, sane/crunchy, like we care, but we don't over care, right? And so I feel like a lot of you have already put some things in place, like maybe you don't do screens, or you have stringent rules and regulations around it. The reason I think we're in trouble is we are in a massive comfort crisis. And there's a great book by Michael Easter. I've mentioned it here before. I've tried to get him on the podcast, but he's too big, I think, or I don't know. Too difficult. I don't know. But I'll try again and have to delete this. But it's a great book. And Pascal read it. He loved it. It's a really interesting book about how the human condition is built for struggle. And if you followed me for a long time, you know, you were probably around when I did my first few Spartan races. And I have done obstacle endurance racing. And the first time I did one was in 2018. And I was a completely different person after this one race. It was a Tough Mudder. It was the longer one, the 10-mile one. I had never done anything like that before. I did it with a group. There was a team effort in it. And it dawned on me, like the skies opened and angels sang hallelujah. We are built for struggle, and we don't have struggle. And so we have to manufacture struggle, because in these obstacle courses, it's like a giant playground. If you've never done them, I'm sure by now everybody's heard of them, like Tough Mudders and Spartan races. Spartan's more like a military base one, and more military obstacles. And so I felt the amount of pride and dopamine from this long race of very hard things to do, completed with in-person human team effort, was life-changing for me. And I was like, oh, like we live in lives that are so comfortable. We have to create struggle, because that's what makes us feel great. It releases all the great hormones, all the dopamine, and I just am convinced. I don't know what else to say about it except that the human body is made for struggle, made to overcome struggle. So anyway, fast forward. Now I hear dopamine, dopamine, dopamine. I'm using the word and I was like, do I even really understand how this works? So I'm going to do my best to relay this. Okay. Anna Lemke is the reigning expert on dopamine, and her book is Dopamine Nation. I highly suggest that book. I am going to try to paraphrase in layman's terms succinctly what I've learned from her about dopamine. I've also listened to her on many, many podcasts. She's very interesting. And I'm going to try to get her on the podcast too. She is apparently very, very judicious in who she chooses to go on podcasts. Hopefully, I don't know. But dopamine is not the reward. So we tend to use it in that context, right? We tend to think, oh, they're getting dopamine. Oh, like it's this feel good ding, 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 right? But it's not. Dopamine is a transmitter and a receiver, neurotransmitter, okay? And so you may not be able to, if you want to see this on YouTube, I'm using my hands, but dopamine is about the getting. It's about the process, the motivation to get the reward. And without dopamine, they've done studies on rats where they've removed the dopamine transmitter and receiver, and these rats die. They just die. There is no motivation. You might be able to put food in their mouth. They might chew it a couple of times. There's nothing to it. And so what Anna Lemke says is that we are built, actually, the human body is meant, the baseline is lonely, tired, hungry, right? That's how we came about. That's what the human body is built for. And so overcoming those is the motivation to do something long and arduous for the reward. So if you think about when we had to hunt for food, or even really, really grow our own food, pick the grain, mill the flour, right? Like it was a long process to get a loaf of bread that now you can get for a couple of bucks in the grocery store, right? So that long process, and then you got the reward, which was being fed, right? Otherwise, you would go hungry and you would need more dopamine to keep you getting and motivated to go hunting. So it's these long things. And so again, I used to use the term cheap and expensive, but the better terms are fast and slow, because how fast that dopamine transmitter goes to the receiver makes the dopamine stronger. Okay. Now, dopamine works on a pleasure pain balance. And she literally, in her book, she uses a scale, okay? Like a typical, the justice scale. And when you get dopamine, the body automatically, in order to get at homeostasis, creates a pain of some version. She calls them little gremlins. Little gremlins hop on that pain scale and they bring you back to homeostasis. But in doing so, it makes the dopamine tip. And that's wanting more. Okay. And so the faster this happens and the more powerful that dopamine, the more those pain gremlins are going to come on and tip the scale to homeostasis. Okay. To balance it out. And so this is what's really behind drug addiction, alcohol addiction, any addiction, gambling addiction, and the need for more. Yes, are some things highly addictive? Yes, but it's not the thing in the addiction. We're kind of thinking of it a little too simplistic. It's that fast transmission is giving you a big dollop, right? So back in days where we had to grow our own food, mill the flour, or hunt, right? Hunt all day to get food, we would be fed, right? That was the reward. Now, not only is it fast because we can get it at the market, we can open a package, but now with the hyper-palatability, it's intense. We're not just fed. Now we're lighting up other reward pathways in our brain. And so when our kids are little, that transmission, if we continually make it fast, they are going to want more of the snacks, more of the screens, right? And this is literally in line with what we know and report, right? It's like, oh my God, my kid's a picky eater. All they want are snack foods. Because that's what it is. But this is in everything. This is why people want another drink. This is why people want another cigarette. This is why people want another scroll on your phone. And our phones are huge huge, intense dopamine, right? And it's fast. You pick up your phone and it's right there. It's right there. And you get it. You get the pow, right? And it's everything about our phones. And Michael Easter wrote a follow-up to the comfort crisis. I can't remember. I was just listening to it on Audible, but you can look it up. His books, Michael Easter. And it's all about the slot machine technology that goes into phones. Everything about our phones is designed for intense rewards that make that intense reward pathway shorter and shorter and shorter. And so that's why you want more, right? So that's why in the past, remember I've told you that we have, I love to take the saturation out of my phone, put it on grayscale. That takes away the color. Any social media, any scrolling is going to be intermittent rewards, right? Sometimes you get something that you really resonate with. Other times you do not, and you want to fight it, right? So other times you think you're getting connection. You're like, oh, I'm going to go on and, bitch or vent or ask for help. And it feels like connection, but it's not connection. Connection comes from in person. It comes from oxytocin that we get from being in person, touching, feeling other people, holding space, holding literal space in a circle, in a room, crying on each other's shoulders. That's what we need. Nothing you do on the phone is actual connection. Yes, a text can be a line to somebody, a voice note can be a line, but it's not releasing the same thing as you get in person, which is oxytocin, which is the love hormone, the feel-good hormone. That's what we need, right? So this is why porn, you look at porn, where has porn gone? It used to be, God, in the 80s, the pizza guy rang the bell and they banged on the washing machine and that was that. Now porn is like bizarre. And I don't partake, but I am hearing just, it's horrific. And because you need more, it needs to be more intense. So if you don't put the brakes on this now, it only leads to more. That's the most distressing aspect. And so we have to go to great lengths to create more scenarios in which we can slow down that dopamine release, slow down that transmission from the transmission to the receiver, right? So that we have these longer experiences and our things are earned. Yes. And, around the holidays, and it starts around Halloween, we hear this thing about, you don't have to earn your food, right? You don't have to burn it off. You don't have to earn your food. And it's wild because while I understand that context from like eating disorder recovery standpoint or, anti-diet culture, I do understand that. But we used to earn our food literally by going out and killing our food or spending a great deal of time growing our food. Right. And arguably, well, I don't know. Are supermarkets great? I don't think they are anymore. I think all our troubles as humans, like when I literally backtrack, like, I do obsessively, right? When we look back, it really all started when we got supermarkets and easy access, right? And I would love to say, yes, that's great for every person, but we still have tons of people going hungry. We still have record rates of obesity, which we now know can actually be a person like who's nutritionally defunct. Their body's starving, even though they are carrying excess weight because they're not getting the nutrients they need, right? So we have these diseases of excess now. And I feel like with our kids, it's everything we've been talking about. Like I talked about it with Tori Winstead about microdosing suffering, but we have to create this. And it's hard because it snuck up on us. It snuck up on all of us, myself included. And I've tried to be really transparent here about, my struggles with social media and using it for work and how I get lost on it. Hopefully, because I want you guys to recognize if you have that, like no shame, no guilt, we just have to put guardrails. But I also need you to know that everything is against you. Everything is against you. And so a year ago or 2 years ago, it was cute. Oh my God, I'm so addicted to my phone. Oh my God. Oh my God. He's just so addicted to made good granola bars. It sounded cute 2 years ago. It sounded like a little glitch, a little bump in the road. And I'm sounding the alarm. I did this with picky eating, guys. 2 or 3 years ago, I did a picky eating episode where I was like, guys, we're headed in a bad place. And I could just see more and more feeding clinics opening. I could see more and more picky eating that just went from standard picky eating to kids eating only 1 or 2 items. And I'm sounding the alarm now. We have to do everything in our power to slow this down. Go analog where you can. And I think there are real things we can do. I'm talking a lot about this on social media now, and the differences in, parenting. How is parenting so different? Because I just keep thinking, I was like, we didn't have individual devices when Pascal was little. So I'm not talking about centuries ago. I'm not talking about boomers. I'm not talking about whole generations ago. I'm talking about in Pascal's lifetime, this went 0 to 60. This went 0 to 160. And I talked about this before, right? Like, I didn't have personal devices. So he wasn't locked and loaded onto something when I had to cook or do something or even work from home. And we did have television though. And so I think that is a great place to go analog. Okay. And so this is where I'm going to stop the dooms because, well, I'm going to do one more doomsday. Okay. And this is what I really need you guys to understand. In the 0 to 5 years, I have a psychology background. I always thought the 0 to 5 years were because of, I'm wondering now if I'm repeating myself, but I think I repeated this in the episode that got deleted. So in the 0 to 5 years, I know are the most important, building the foundation for your child. And I always thought from a psychological perspective, that's the only way I thought about it, right? Like, we're forming their secure attachment, we're forming like their inner voice. But I have mentioned this before on the podcast though. When Pascal was little, I got brain imaging from an MRI. We signed up for a study. They needed healthy kids MRIs. So we could, they had a baseline for sick kids. And so they paid the kids in gift cards and they dressed the MRI machine up like a rocket ship. And so Pascal went in there and I got to see a brain scan. It was amazing. And I asked the researchers how things were going. And they, between years of doing this, they had from literally first day all the way, they had brain scans of kids and they could show like neural development. It was so wild. We're literally putting their electricity in their brain. We're literally wiring them in the 0 to 5. And so when they have this dopamine, this fast acting, intense dopamine, you're shortening their reward pathways, right? And that's what's bringing up so much behavior. That's what's bringing up the tantrums after the screen. That's what's bringing up the refusal to eat, because the brain, once that dopamine hits the brain, what dopamine does is it signals to the brain what we should pay attention to. So that transmission to the receiver and the speed at which this happens tells the brain, oh, pay attention to this, because our brain is like, think of everything you see and hear and do in a day. Like, your brain can't handle all of that. You can't take in all that information as equally important. So that dopamine tells the brain, ding, 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 this is important. This is what we want. And here's the trip about it. The brain then deems this so important that it will forego eating, drinking, and going to the bathroom. Okay. So we see this in kids. When they are so acclimated to hyper-palatable foods, they will go without food. They don't care, right? Because the brain's waiting. It needs that fast hit. We see this, you often see like real bad drug addicts or alcoholics who lose their kids, lose their house. And you're like, how could that happen? And it's about this fast, intense transmission. So just about any sort of quote unquote addiction, even those that are still in flux, like screen addiction, which I don't know how that's still controversial, but it is. Hyper-palatable foods, still controversial. I don't know how it is, but it is. And so that's telling the brain this is important. And that's where we see people give up their lives, right? And it's the thing, but the thing is creating this transmission. Yes. And I will say certain brains are more vulnerable. Now, neurodivergent kids are going to have more vulnerability to this. So we have to have even more guardrails for those kids, right? I think I am very susceptible. I've been breaking these habits my whole life. And I think mine probably caused by trauma, right? Early childhood trauma. And I think we can go on and on and on trying to figure out how it happened. But also I do think some people are just born moderators or born abstainers. And I keep talking about this, and I'm going to keep talking about this, but Gretchen Rubin came up with this metric of some people just do better with nothing than with trying to moderate, which is why moderation typically doesn't work with people who are addicted to hyper-palatable foods, including adults. Moderation doesn't work, right? But abstaining can be great. I am an abstainer. I do better. I fucking love nicotine. If I could have a cigarette once in a while, believe me, I would. I seriously would. Like those people who can have one when they drink or something, every once in a while. I can't. I'm going to be smoking a pack within a week. I know myself, right? So I just, some people are like this and some people aren't. And I think our kids now are being born into this place where they're already vulnerable. I think they're kind of getting the toxic load of all generations past, and it's been increasing and increasing. So I do think our little ones are very sensitive because they're little and malleable, right? Their brains are being formed, but I also think some kids are really susceptible to this. And I did a post about Halloween candy and that whole bullshit. And a lot of people said that, like, I can't serve Halloween candy. We eat it, then it's out of the house. I can't serve it moderately because my kid gets obsessed. I hear this from a lot of you. Other kids can have a piece of candy once in a while and forget about it. Those people are so special to me. Like, they have a high place in heaven. I don't know who those people are because I don't know. Everybody I know circles, like I say this all the time, like I would love to be the person who could buy a package of cookies and have a cookie. I can have a package. I can't have one cookie, but it's going to be on the back of my mind like the whole day. And this is what I love about GLP-1s right now. It's come into our broader lexicon that people have food noise, and that's food noise. And I love that term is now kind of commonplace because it really is for some people. It's that nagging, it's there. And I'll just circle that bag of Chips Ahoy. I'd buy better cookies. but if it was Chips Ahoy, I just circle it till it's gone. And so I know myself. And so I put my guardrails on, and that's what I do, But with our kids, I feel like we have to, because the brain determines that this is so important that I need it for above and beyond all things. What happens when we shorten their reward pathways is they're going to need more, and it's always going to up the ante. So right now, they're 4 or 5, they're only eating a few sweet, starchy foods. But as they get older, they're going to want more. And this is where I think, and I could be wrong about this, but this is where we're in trouble, because these are going to lead to other addictions, because it has to intensify. So when cookies aren't enough, they may turn to drinking at a young age and get hooked on that. They may try different drugs to get hooked on that, because you're going to need more. And that dopamine pain scale is going to get wicked out of balance, and it's going to be up and down and up and down and up and down. And it's going to need more and more and more. And so I am so fearful in this dopamine drenched society that we're in, that we're setting our kids up for addiction down the path. Okay. Because it's going to run dry. Pretty soon there's not going to be enough cookies. There's not going to be enough of screen. The screen's going to be dissatisfying. It's not enough. And they're going to need things to feel alive. And they're going to need things that hit that reward pathway faster and more intensely than what they've had. So this is my doomsday, because I feel like if we don't put hardcore brakes on this right now, we're going to go over the cliff, and it's going to be impossible to manage. And I think so much of the behavioral stuff we're seeing in kids, so many of the diagnoses, and I'm not saying diagnoses aren't real, but I think they're exacerbated. And we know from my episode with the toddler TV trap, there is a fourth kind of autism that is completely screen induced. Okay. And so a subset of autism that is completely screen induced. And so we're in trouble. And I recently told you guys, I went to Vegas for a girls' weekend with my friend, and we saw the Wizard of Oz at the Sphere, and it was cool. It was very cool. It was very amazing. And the Sphere itself is an awesome auditorium, but of course the movie was AI altered a bit, and it was all encompassing, and it was amazing. They had wind blowing when the tornado came on, and like a cyclone, and debris flying around in the air, and the poppy scene, it snowed. But when Dorothy steps into Oz, oh my God, it was like you were in Oz, and the whole auditorium lit up. Like you could see everybody. It was like you were outside. It was wild. And then when the trees throw the apples, it was wild, because two little, not two, but I only saw two things flapped in the opening of the Sphere and dropped foam apples onto the audience. And it was like a break in the fourth wall, right? I was like, oh, I forgot we're not in Oz. I forgot we were in an auditorium. And after that experience, I was also like, holy shit, we're in trouble. Like AI and like virtual reality. And what's that one? What's that movie? Not Hunger Games, Ready Player One. I don't know. I'm sure you guys saw that, right? Ready Player One, Pascal and I went to see it when it came out. He was younger, and he came out and he loved the movie. And I was like, oh, I don't like that. I'm very disturbed. Like, they weren't living their lives. They were living in an alternate reality. And he got so mad at me. He was like, what's so bad about that? If life's terrible, why wouldn't you go to an alternate reality where you can be who you want and you have friends there and it's the same? And I'm like, oh, no, it's not, buddy. No, it's not the same. So I'm going to drag him up some mountains. So anyway, all these enhancements, right? I'm just getting this alarm bells are ringing off in my head. And I don't think, I kind of always watch myself. Like, am I just being a boomer? Am I just being like, not a boomer, but like older generation who's not accepting of the new generational things? But I don't know, guys. I think we're just headed down a really, really bad path. So let's talk solutions, because I will never, ever threaten you guys with a horrible time without solutions. So we just have to go analog. We have to create struggle. And this is nothing new to you if you've been listening to me for a long time. And this is basically what I've been saying for years, but I'm kind of putting it through this different lens of our kids' dopamine transmission, how fast it is, how short those reward pathways are getting to get that zing, zing, zing. So of course, I started a few minutes ago saying television, right? I think that television is fine. The TV in a main room, I hear this a lot, and I think this might be a younger thing. It was definitely a thing my parents did, and I don't do it at all, but I'm hearing it from a lot of millennials, so I feel like it could be a generational thing. Oh, we just keep the TV on for background noise. Please don't do that. Don't do that, okay? It doesn't need to be you don't need background noise. We need our brains to be idle. Like a car, right? It just needs to be idle, like chilled out, okay? It's okay to have quiet, empty space. And I know what you're saying. I have toddlers, Jamie. There is no quiet, empty space. But we don't want TV to become background noise, okay? Number one, if it's on a television show or whatever, like you're not watching what everything does. And so your toddler's got like split attention. This is no different than you being on your phone, trying to follow a recipe, answering text, and then your kid freaks out and you lose your shit. It contributes to overstimulation. So if you're doing that, don't do that. Now, I think TVs are a great viewing if you need a screen, if you're working from home. I know after 2020, a lot of people were able to go remote. One of the biggest mistakes I think you can do is for a mom or a dad to work from home and not have the child have any caregiver besides them and think that they can do that. We learned that great experiment in March of 2020 and it doesn't work. It's very, very challenging. So I have heard from a lot of people like, you don't understand. I'm a call, like a call center operator. And so it's random. I don't always have to work, but I have to pick up calls when they come in. Yeah, you can't parent during that time, right? I mean, if it's only a set time and it's a half hour, sure, you can put your kid on a slow moving TV show. But this is one of those things that I think people are lulled into thinking, I can work from home. My son is 19, you guys, and he, for all intents and purposes, he lives with me, but he's pretty much an empty nester, got his own thing going on, and he is so disruptive. They're like energy forces of tornadoes. And so they come in and it doesn't matter. Even at 19 years old, it's like, I can't just ignore him and do work. He's at work right now. And I'm like, whew, I can create content. I can work, right? So even at 19, it's still disruptive. So yeah, it's totally disruptive when your kid is little, right? So I think that's a big thing. But if you need to get something done and you have been encouraging your kid to be with you in the kitchen and helping with chores and all those things, and you're like, I just need a break, for sure. Go analog though. TV, far away, slow moving shows. There are tons of lists. All you have to do is Google low stimulation shows. You can go to U Schooler on Instagram with a U, the letter U, Schooler. He has great content on low stimulation shows. He's even got an app now where you can punch in whatever you're watching and see where it ranks on the stimulation level. Those are great. I know a lot of people are going back to VHS tapes. Okay. So like a set thing that needs to be rewound, that has to have some patience, that ends. You can watch, certain episodes. So I think those are really great ideas if you have to utilize screen. If you have a smart TV or a really huge screen, like a lot of people do, go to the settings and see if you can get it on less saturation. So you take out the blue light, it's going to look different. But what's happening is a lot of times when parents need a break is that witching hour, like 3 to 6, right? But that's when the body should be signaling to go get ready for bed. And so if that's the time you utilize screen time, make sure either you buy like kitty blue light blockers, which would be really hard for a toddler, or go into your settings and take the blue light out, okay? Because remember that blue light emits from LED and from screens, and that signals to the body that it's noon. So a lot of sleep troubles, I think, are because we're utilizing screens in that clusterfuck hours, and it's amping the kids up, okay? Work hard. Think of working hard for your dopamine. And Tori and I even brought up like peeling a hard-boiled egg, right? Like if you have to bring snacks for your kids, which again, go back to like an orange, an apple, you have to work harder for these things. An apple is hard to eat. Yeah. And so working hard for our food is not a horrible thing, right? And of course we don't want to, I know how that can get sketchy for you if you've had disordered eating. So like frame it in the right way, right? Which is like, think of like, okay, yeah, you have to peel this. One of the things I feel really strongly about, a lot of times I'm working with kids with pooping problems and they're eating nuts and nuts and nuts, and nuts can cause a lot of GI problems. And I say, if you think you want nuts, go old school where you have to crack nuts. Yeah. Because you're going to eat 5 almonds. The big thing that's happened with nuts is we have them shelled in bags. We were never meant to eat nuts like in this quantity because no one would sit down and crack nuts like this. Yeah, no one. So, and I remember Thanksgiving, we'd have big bowls of nuts all around with nutcrackers, and it was fun for like 5 minutes, but then who the hell wants to sit there cracking nuts? So if that's your issue, go old school. So any area where you feel like your kid is getting that fast hit and you want to back it off, how can you slow it down? How can you build that patience? Because then the reward is all the sweeter, but the reward doesn't have to be intense because the transmission was long. The motivation was long and strong, and that's what you want. And that's why I personally, this is really timely because you guys know I'm hiking so much now. I'm hiking on the weekends, and I just did my first solo winter hike, and it was the hardest thing I have ever done, bar none, in my life. Okay, maybe not labor. Sorry about that. Okay, probably labor was harder, but even harder than my Spartan races, okay? Because I didn't know this term when I went into it, but I was breaking trail, which means I was the first person on the trail after a good amount of snow. And I was shocked. I was by myself. I was very safe, you guys. I do not fuck around on the mountain. I have all respect for the mountain and the changing volatile weather in the White Mountains in New Hampshire. So I was very safe, but I was winded. I couldn't even believe it. Like every 30 feet, I was like, oh my God, I'm out of breath. Like my cardio is good. My VO2 max is great. I am in great mountain shape. What the hell is going on? And then when I got off let me just, before I tell about getting off the mountain. So like even on certain flat areas, it was work because I was breaking the trail. I was trudging through this, in some spots, like knee to mid-thigh snow. And I didn't have snowshoes because I looked the day before on all the hiking groups and everybody said no snowshoes needed for this mountain. And they lied. And so I just didn't know why it was so hard. And I got to the top and I was post-holing, which is when the snow is drifting. In some places it's hard and you land in a couple of inches, and the next place it's waist deep and you're down in the snow. And so there's no predicting, and I consistently chose wrong. And so I had an eighth of a mile left to the summit, and you're in the Arctic zone, which means you're above tree line, which you're fully exposed to all the elements. So this is where wind whips around. The wind gusts were 45 miles per hour. I had goggles, I had a balaclava. I was warm. I wasn't in danger, but I was crying. Like tears were frozen on my face because I was so gassed. And every step I was like, okay, just 2 more steps and you can turn around. And then of course, I knew I wasn't in danger. So I struggled, but I had to dig fucking deep, man. I had to dig so deep, and I have never done an activity that wrings me dry like that, except labor. Even the Spartan races, I thought those were accomplishments. This summit was by far the best accomplishment I've ever done. And I average about 2 miles per hour on any incline and on any mountain, and sometimes even a little faster, which is a pretty good clip. And on this mountain, it took me 4 hours to summit, which it's a pretty short hike. It was only 3.7 miles to the summit, but it took me 4 hours, which means I was doing less than a mile an hour, which is insanely slow for me. So yeah, it was like such an accomplishment. And I got off the mountain though, and I was oh my God, I was so proud of myself, like so proud of myself. Like, and I didn't have a view. I had nothing. I got to the summit marker and I turned around because there was another guy with snowshoes, and it was so windy that the trail was not there. And I wanted to follow his tracks in the Arctic zone, so I didn't get off trail. And so I wanted to hightail it out of there because I didn't want to be like looking at my navigation device that carefully in those conditions. And so I just hightailed it out of there. So I didn't even get any pictures. I got some pictures close to the summit, and it was like caked on rime ice. And anyway, but you can hear it in my voice, right? Like, look at me. Oh my God, I did this hard thing. And it's not even like, I don't even feel like a badass. I'm just like, I did it. I did the hard thing. I did something that like I had to dig and find a piece of me that I didn't know existed. I've been riding that high for days. That is so much better than a piece of candy. That is so much better than a scroll on my phone, right? So that's the thing. And that's what I've been digging about these hikes. And again, if you followed me for a long time, I've been preaching mountains forever. Even if you have a steep hill, okay, and you might have to drive a little to find one. And I understand if you live in a part of the world that doesn't have any hills at all, that I always think this is the best way to build grit and resistance in kids, because there's this impetus to get to the top and there's this excitement to get to the top. And then all the bitching and moaning with kids starts on the way down. And my feet hurt. I have no water. I have no snacks. And there's nobody coming to save you. And that's literally, I've said that to more kids. I've taken more kids under the age of 8 on this one hike called Mount Monadnock in New Hampshire. And it's a mile and a half up, mile and a half down, but it is steep and you have to be kind of a billy goat. It's very, very rocky, and kids love it, love it, love it. At the top, there's a water collection spot where there's tadpoles in the spring, and kids just love it. And then sure enough, on the way down, they bitching and moaning. And all I say is, no one's coming to save you. I can't carry all of you. So you got to get down the mountain. And that's when everybody sucks it up. They find that little piece in them that doesn't bitch, because what are you going to do? Right? You got to get down the mountain. So why waste any energy bitching? You got to get down the mountain. And so that builds in kids, right? That really builds in kids. And that's Pascal loves hiking to this day. And that is the epitome of what I mean by this slow dopamine. And then that sensation, because you own that sensation, that is yours. That I didn't think I could do it, and then I did it. That we call it self-esteem. Fuck self-esteem. That is the best feeling in the world. That is what gives you confidence, grit, resilience. And it gives you that idea of like, all right, sometimes you just got to shut the hell up and do it. You just got to do it. And that I can do hard things, right? And that's what we want to cultivate in our kids. I can do hard things. And so where I feel like I could list endless examples of where we could go analog. When you want a book, can you look for it? Can you go to the library, request it, wait for it to come in rather than buying it on Amazon, buying the ebook version? You know, when you have a purchase, you yourself, do you need to get it on Amazon? Can you go to the company? Is there a better warranty if you get it through the company? You know, can you wait 2 weeks to get your item, right? Like these things. And I always think that, like, I always think whenever I'm on Amazon, I always try to say, like, why do I think I need this in 2 days? Why do I think that's important? Because am I looking for dopamine unconsciously, right? Because I think this is happening unconsciously for a lot of us. I myself don't snack, don't keep anything snacky around the house, because that's a guardrail, because I know that's where my brain wants to go. My brain wants to go to the fast and the easy. And I think all of us are there because we've created it. It snuck up on us, and now it's a part of our lives. And so we just have to slow it down. So sometimes that's waiting, not having sippy cups in the car, like I mentioned, maybe not snacking, but it's these things that we have to work hard. I think the idea is you have to almost work hard for a meh feeling, right? Because like I said, the reward of getting up the mountain, yeah, it's what everybody says about the journey, right? It's not the goal. It's who you become in getting the goal. And I think that we can really directly parallel to this dopamine transmission, right? And the intensity, because getting to the mountain, I barely spent any time at the top. No views, no nothing. I tapped my foot and I was done, right? But who I became, I nearly danced down. It took me an hour to get down because I could run, and there had been some snowshoers who packed down the trail. Now I could run. And so it took me an hour to run down the mountain. I was happy as a pig in shit because I was like, whoa, look at what I did. Look at what I did. There was nobody at the bottom to high five me. I don't expect high fives from you or anybody. Like, it was just me, and like knowing I did that. So again, was it the reward? Yeah, I summited. The summit wasn't the big fucking deal. The big deal was how I got there. Right. And so that's the reason we want to extend that reward pathway. We want that to be the thing. So again, like wherever you can find, there are 1,000 things, and I'll probably just make a list in my head as I go about them, because like right this second I'm drawing a blank, but there are 1,000 things that we expect that immediate reward, and it doesn't come. And if we delay, it's coming. That is the key thing. And so find those spots with your kids where you can delay, you can say no, you can pick an analog measure, right? And I've gone analog with everything that I try to use my phone for, so that I'm just not even picking up my phone. Analog alarm clock in my room. I have a little baby flashlight in my room, these little flashlight torches things that they have like ambient lighting. I have that in my room. I don't need to know the weather when I walk Maverick in the morning. I can look outside. I can stick my head on and go, oh, it's freaking cold, or, oh, it's raining, or, oh, look, it's going to be nice. Like, I don't need that. I don't need to know all these things immediately that my brain is like, yeah, you do. That's why you need to pick up the shiny device that you love and have a problem with. Right. So I have noticed even when I use my brick device, which you guys know I love, I will brick up certain things and my brain still wants to scroll. I'll be scrolling nothing. I'll be scrolling my food tracking app for no reason. I'll be scrolling the weather, finding out what the weather is in Florida. Like, I don't, like, seriously, that's what I'm talking about. So, and I don't think when it comes to our phones, I think we just have to be so brutal about what we're using it for, how we're using it, and how it's contributing to not just the dopamine, not just that fast, intense reward system, but also how it's contributing to our overstimulation and our burnout. Because somebody said this on an Instagram post I did, and I thought this was a very astute thing. She said, I don't know that we're physically busier as parents, but we are definitely brain busier. And she said, it's our phones. It's too much information. And even if you don't have social media, it's still too many group texts and too many recipes on the Food Network site. It's like too much access to information. And we all utilize that, even if you're not doom scrolling on social media. And so it keeps our brains busy. And I will say this, I've said this numerous podcasts. If you are terribly confused about what to feed your family, terribly confused about parenting, this one says that and this one says this, I'm not saying you don't know certain things, because I know you're listening to me because you're like, I need help in these areas. I'm listening to Jamie, trying to do certain things. Like, I get that. But if you are like, yeah, but Jamie says this and Dr. Becky says that and Eli Harwood says this, and now I don't really know, like, they're a little off. Each one has a slightly different take and I'm really confused what to do. That means you have too much information. Pick one. And I won't be insulted if it's not me. I will be honored if it is me, but pick one or two people. Pick one or two people to follow and find their long form content and stick with it. Okay. Because it's too much information. We're getting so much information, and I am thrilled. I am so thrilled that you are listening to me, and I am so honored. But like, even shut me off sometimes. I'm sure you do. I can be annoying if I know. But like, I've really had to let go of some podcasts because, again, it's just stimulation. And we need to go back to that idle brain. Like, think of your car warming up in the morning, just a nice low idle. And that's how things shake out. And I really think that's what's missing for our kids. I really think our kids just do not any longer know how to just be. And so check yourself, and only you know. I can't tell you what, obviously what every household is like or what you're doing, but check in on yourself and be willing to be honest and brutal and not give yourself excuses and say, oh shit, because that's where I'm at. I'm like, no, this has to stop now, because it will just be in a really bad place in a very short amount of time. So hopefully that helps, and that this wasn't all depressing doomsday, but it's bad. Sorry. I wish I could be more hopeful, but I think if we don't immediately turn the boat around, it's just going to get so much worse. So with that, I thank you guys so much. If you're so inclined, leave a review. That does help the algorithm find my way to other people. And yeah, as always, put your phone down and rock on. Have a great day, guys.